Hello everyone, trust we are doing okay. Today we'll be reviewing a book titled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Interestingly, I found a copy of this book in our library at home, and from the look of it, the owner literally read it voraciously considering how worn out it looks. So I'd just like to mention that this is one of those books that you would revert to occasionally. It's one of those books that everyone should have and cherish. So let's get right into it. In part 1 of this book, the author emphasizes a great deal on the power of perception, paradigm shifts, and the phenomenon of change that occurs spontaneously when we see things differently. Stephen shared a story about his son who was not meeting up to expectations, and in a bid to help him, he grew worse. This led Stephen to conduct a study on expectancy theory, self-fulfilling prophecy, or the Pygmalion effect, which basically means that the lens through which we see the world, as well as the world we see, shapes how we interpret the world. Simply put, our perception influences our outcomes. He also writes extensively on the power of paradigm. Now, the word paradigm was originally a Greek word and a scientific term, and is more commonly used today to mean a model, a frame of reference, a perception, assumption, or a theory. Now, paradigm in the general sense is the way we see the world, not in terms of visual sense of sight, but in terms of perceiving, understanding, and interpreting. The author simplifies it here by referring to paradigms as maps, highlighting that the map is not the territory in itself, but an explanation of certain aspects of the territory. To explain further, or to illustrate further, he made reference to an experiment that was carried out a while back, where a class was shown a picture of a lady. 50% of the class saw a younger lady striking an onlooking pose, while the other half of the class saw an older woman slouching a bit. I would insert the picture somewhere on the screen. Kindly drop in the comments section what you see. Well, there was a heated argument in the class as to what the picture really portrays. It wasn't until both parties calmed down and began to explain carefully the basis to which they arrived at their conclusion that some progress was made. Otherwise, there was just a lot of back and forth. And this now leads us to the power of paradigm shifts. Paradigm shifts can be referred to as those, or as that aha moment or experience. It's the "oh, I see now" moment. It is when a person can see the composite picture in a different way or through another person's eyes. The more bound you are by your initial perception, the more powerful the aha experience is. It's as though when paradigm shifts occur, a light were suddenly turned on the inside, with everything taking on a different perception. So Stephen relays a story about one of his paradigm shift experiences, or one of his aha moments. He talks about a man who walks into the train station with his children, and the children were really loud, boisterous, just throwing things around, and this man I think he laid backward and just trying to absorb all the calmness he could get. Stephen said in that moment he could see that people were really irate, and he muscled up courage to speak to the man. He said, "Excuse me, sir, your children are really loud and disturbing people. You might want to talk to them." And the man, rose up gradually as though he was oblivious of everything going on around him, and he said, "Oh yeah, right. We just got back from the hospital where I lost my wife and their mother about an hour ago. I guess I don't know how well to handle it, and neither do they." Now, almost immediately, Stephen admitted that all the anger he felt in that moment fizzled out, because it was as though all the noise became inconsequential in comparison to the grief and loss that the man was feeling in that moment. There was a change of perception. Almost immediately, Stephen became more compassionate, more considerate. That was like a light that was turned on almost immediately for him. I have personally experienced one of those paradigm shift moments myself. I had a time when I had to work with a colleague who the information he provided me, my reports or my deliverables were dependent on the information he provided me. So each time I go to meet him, I would say a lot, and the highest I would get is maybe a nod or an okay. Of a better word, it was almost annoying, because why can't you say more, right? So it wasn't until the day that I realized that he actually has a stutter that, a lot of things changed for me in that moment. In that moment, I realized that it wasn't that he wasn't trying to communicate. The truth was that he was struggling to communicate, and he was avoiding all the drama that comes with stammering and all of that. So I became more patient and more understanding. paradigm shifts are very powerful. It is, however, worthy of note that not all paradigm shifts are going in a positive direction. It's important to also note that whether they are positive or negative, whether they are instantaneous or developmental, paradigm shifts always help us to see the world in a different light in another way, and that is tremendously powerful. I'll just go into the 7 habits in summary now very quickly, and I want us to just understand that most of these habits come off as simple, but we all know that simple is not always easy. They might take time to implement. In implementing these 7 habits, what we aim at achieving is the last stage in the line of maturity known as interdependency. Now, this thrives on building and nurturing relationship with people. The first habit is to be proactive. Your life is a product of your values and your choices, not your feelings or condition. You have to make conscious endeavors, because the truth remains that the best way to predict your future is to create it. You also have to take full responsibility of what happens in your life. Don't let life happen to you. Let life happen for you. Another great concept that was mentioned in this first habit is the concept of stimulus and response. Now, Stephen says, or I think he was quoting someone else when he says that between stimulus and response is a space where our greatest power lies, which is the freedom to choose. And this makes us uniquely human and different from animals. You have the freedom to choose. Choose your attitude, your effort, your response, the amount of work you put in. You have the freedom to choose to put your best foot forward every day, to choose what you feed yourself with in terms of the information and what you just saturate yourself with. So it's important for us to choose. I always say, if you don't enjoy your current situation, if you don't enjoy what you're doing presently, do something about it to change it rather than complaining about it. If you don't enjoy your present job, do something about it. There's something I do. If I see a company I'm interested in, I send unsolicited applications. That's what I'm known for. I read about them. I write a mail saying, oh, I like what you do, and this is what I have to offer, my value offering. I summarize it, attach my resume, and send it. It was amazing that I found out in this book that Stephen was also recommending it to people. He gave it a fancy word, solution selling. Prior to this time, I didn't even know that it had a name. But this is what I know though, it works, because that is how I landed this role I'm currently on. That is how I got this job I currently have. So if you would need guidance on how to do that, you can kindly reach out to me and I would gladly share. So be proactive. Don't let life happen to you. Let life happen for you. What are those steps you have taken to better position you for the roles that you would like to attract? What is that thing that you're doing to change, your situation, to give you an edge over people? Because the truth remains that it's a competitive world and you have to have an edge all the time. The second habit is to begin with the end in mind. While writing in the first habit, Stephen calls us programmers or drivers behind the steering wheel of our lives. He buttresses this point further by saying and urging us to write our own program and not live by anybody's. Simply put, take personal leadership over your life, be focused and have an objective. Don't go with the flow. Again, don't let life happen to you. Don't have your ladder leaning on the wrong wall. Write your own personal mission statement, your guiding principle, what you want to achieve, and your values. Just like every organization has their mission and their vision, Stephen admonishes us to write our personal mission statement. Now he says something that all things are created twice. First in the mind, before then it then crystallizes in the physical. Don't underestimate the power of your thoughts. When I saw this, I was reminded of Proverbs 23 verse 7 that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. I was discussing with my mom the other day and I told her that I found it really interesting that all the points shared in this book is in congruence and in sync with all the central ideas and the points shared in the books that I have previously read. Whether it's a Christian literature or a self-help book, from atomic habits to the subtle acts, the ideas seem to amplify each other. It's almost as if every author is saying the same thing, from the power of the choice that we make and how they define the trajectory of our lives to taking responsibility for the outcome of our lives. Everything just sums up together to tell you that you are really, really responsible for the outcome of your life. Remember, our greatest power is the power to choose. And like Nelson Mandela said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. The third point is put first things first. Put first things first. Things that matter most must never be be at the mercy of things that matter less. Develop your discipline and commitment so that you can achieve the personal mission statement that you set out for yourself in habit 2. Think about all your different roles in life. Your role as a mom, a friend, a wife, a staff, your role as maybe a chef. Think about all of that, and from each of these roles, what you want to do is extrapolate your goals and make plans to meet such goals. In other words, you are systematizing your roles in life so that you can achieve these goals. The fourth habit is to think win-win. And in order to think win-win, you have to develop an abundance mindset in contrast to a scarcity mindset. So a scarcity mindset will mean that you're always hoarding information, you are always needlessly worried, you are insecure, you are petty, for the lack of a better word, and you're in an unhealthy competition with every single person you meet, whether they're aware or whether they're oblivious of the competition. It's just going on in your head. In contrast to scarcity mindset, it's to develop an abundance mindset. Like I mentioned earlier, you have to cultivate and nurture a relationship with everybody that you meet, and you also have to invest, cultivate an emotional bank account in all your relationships. And you can do this by showing up for people, being genuinely concerned about people in your life. You can do this by rooting for people. You can do this by saying that your friends, your family, they are better versions of themselves by associating with you. What you're doing is just like a literal investment, and when the need occurs for you to make withdrawals from that, it's going to be easy. It will come naturally to these people to reciprocate all of this love that you have shown them. That's the idea of cultivating an emotional bank account in all your relationships. The fifth habit is to seek first to understand, then be understood. Listen to understand and not to respond. I can say I'm guilty, but I think I'm better now. Before, when I'm talking to a person, I'm thinking 2 steps ahead on what to respond. But Stephen is saying seek first to understand and then to be understood. Right, I think there was an analogy of 2 guys who, when they come to work, one wants the window closed and the other wants the window open, and then they just go back and forth, shutting the window, opening it and closing it. I'm reminded of the AC saga in my office. But this is the point though. They now had to sit down and talk and say, what is happening? Can I just understand why you want the window open? And the other say, can I just understand why you want the window closed? One says, I'm claustrophobic. When the window is closed, I feel like I'm choking and I cannot, work effectively. And the other said, I just like to savor nature. I want to feel the breeze. I want to hear the birds chirping. It helps me to be productive. And somehow they said, okay, there are 2 options here. It's either we find a way to, long story short, they came to a consensus. Just seek to understand people, see things through their own eyes. It still comes, ties to the paradigm thing that we are saying, or I talked about earlier. The 6th habit is to synergize. This entails looking for a third alternative solution that is better than each of our individual solutions. You're valuing the difference. You are seeing that there is benefit in diversity. You're not being rigid in your perception of reality. The easiest way to remember this is that 1 + 1 is not equals to 2 in a synergetic relationship. 1 + 1 is greater than 2 in a synergetic relationship. The 7th habit now is to sharpen the saw. The materials in this book, the solutions profiled, the suggestions listed here, is designed to be a companion in the continuous process of change and growth. All through our lives, it is expected that we experience continual improvement and renewal, which can take the form of physical renewal, you being intentional on your appearance, dressing better the way you want to be addressed, smelling nice, splurge a little, buy products, buy something nice. Be intentional about your fitness, going to the gym, maybe regularly, occasionally, wherever you are at your weight journey or whatever it is that you're doing. Be intentional about what you feed yourself with. Be conscious of your nutrition. It could also take the form of mental renewal by stimulating your mind through reading books, listening to TED Talks, podcasts. Emotional renewal by developing and nurturing your relationships. And lastly, spiritual renewal by being intentional with your relationship with God, studying His Word, meditating on His Word, and just praying. That's the summary of the 7 habits of highly effective people. I hope you're able to learn a thing or 2. But in closing, I would just like to reiterate that concept of paradigm. When you see the world differently, when you see the world through another person's eyes, it's tremendously powerful. And like I said, whether it's gradual or instantaneous, whether it's slow or immediate, it changes a lot of things. So learn to be open. I really implore you to read this book, to cherish the truths, to try to practicalize it. Like I said, it might take time. It's you investing in yourself, and that yields the most dividend. Thank you very much for watching. Please share, subscribe, like, comment. Thank you so much. It's your girl Chels, aka Achille, aka Miriam. See you in my next review. Peace out.